Let's have a look at how you can assess a case using Eperoto, estimate the settlement value, and then flip the case to see it from the other party's point of view. In this case, a defendant is withholding payment, arguing that a claimant delivered too late. If the defendant is brought to court, the case would take roughly a year to process. We start by building a tree to map the claim. The claimant asks the court to accept an argument of force majeure, that they are not to blame for the delay and that they should be paid in full. If this proves successful, the claimant would be awarded all the withheld money of $600,000 and 10% interest from about 1 year back. The defendant counsel sees the force majeure argument as quite weak, with only a low chance of success, around 15%. If the court rejects the force majeure, the next question will be, will the court accept that the delay entitles the defendant to withhold and keep payment as liquidated damages? This is what could happen. Yes, damages accepted in full, no money awarded to the claimant. Mostly accepted, but $200,000 awarded to the claimant. $400,000 awarded to the claimant, and damages refused, $600,000 awarded to the claimant. Once again, our assumption here is that the defendant has a strong argument on this issue. 85% chance of winning, with a 5 + 5 + 5 on having to pay some of the amount to the claimant. We calculate and we see that the probability weighted value of the claim is roughly negative $170,000 for the defendant, with an almost 28% chance of the claimant being awarded something and a 72% of the defendant winning, having to pay nothing. Our best guess is that the legal cost to process this case would be roughly $100,000 per party, cost that could be recovered upon success but has not yet been incurred. Finally, we add that a full win for the defendant means all legal fees would need to be paid by the claimant at the order of the court. A partial win would mean both parties paying their own cost, and vice versa, full or almost full success would mean that the claimant's legal cost would be paid by the defendant. We analyze the case, and we can now see that from the defendant's viewpoint, the average exposure of the case is roughly negative $220,000, or roughly 1/3 of the claim amount. Worst case would mean paying the full claim, interest, and both parties' legal costs totaling $927,000. Best would be no amount paid and all legal fees covered, so a direct financial loss of $0. And there are a few outcomes here in between. So in this case, accepting to pay $220,000 to the claimant as a settlement would have the same value as deciding to proceed with this case in court. But what does the claimant think? This is when we flip the case. If the claimant has the same understanding of the case, they end up with a case value of just over $20,000. Even though they could win, the large upside does not justify the smaller but more likely downside. The ZOPA, the zone of potential agreement between $22,000 and $222,000, is equal to the size of the legal fees that has not yet been incurred. If the parties had the same understanding of the case, it would perhaps be reasonable for them to meet halfway, so maybe the defendant paying a bit more than $100,000 to the claimant. Despite this, any settlement under $222,000 for the defendant would have a better value than deciding to proceed in court, despite the defendant seeing this as a strong case. As the case progresses and legal costs are incurred, the room for finding an agreement will shrink. Naturally, the parties may not have the same understanding of the case, but making an assessment will make it clear in what region it would make sense to discuss settlement alternatives that can benefit both parties. If you want to calculate settlement value and case exposure based on risk, don't hesitate to reach out.